Before proceeding, we highly recommend that you perform firmware updates and do a full functionality check on the camera to make sure everything works correctly. Make sure your battery is fully charged. Make sure your work area is clean, well lit, and free from dust. It's important to note that none of the operations you'll be performing require force. Patience and a gentle touch are all that is required. We don't recommend switching back and forth between the ribcage and the camera's original configuration, as it will create stress and wear on the components. Now let's take a look at the tools that you'll need. A set of precision screwdrivers with a Phillips number 0, a roll of electrical tape, a pair of scissors, tweezers, some superglue, a small tube of thermal paste, some isopropyl alcohol, an air puffer, and your favorite lens or sensor cleaning tools. The first thing you need to do is remove any accessories, the SD card, and the battery. To remove the front cover, use a miniature flathead screwdriver. Gently insert the tool under the upper right-hand corner of the cover, above the lens, and start working your way around the camera. The faceplate is attached with tape and plastic tabs. Pull the faceplate off and set it aside. Remove the button and save it for optional use later in the project. Remove the 2 screws located below the lens. Be sure to save them as they will be needed later. Next, we'll remove the 4 corner screws. Note that the screw on the lower left is shorter than the others. Be sure to save all 4 screws for use later. To remove the interior parts, gently insert a screwdriver under the housing next to the HDMI port and lift the housing slightly over the ports. Grip the lens and work the PCB board assembly out of the housing by gently rocking the lens assembly back and forth until the internal aluminum plate and PCB board assembly is free. Swing the assembly down gently. There are internal connectors located along the edge of the board. Take care not to put stress on them. Remove the 4 screws holding the image sensor onto the rear of the assembly and set them aside. Gently pull up to disconnect the connector joining the image sensor and main board. Use your fingernail or a small screwdriver to remove the small piece of dark tape covering the ribbon connector at the base of the assembly. Now we'll disconnect the ribbon. Use a tiny screwdriver to gently lift up on the black locking tab. Use your screwdriver to pull the connector free, taking care not to scratch or puncture the ribbon. Remove the screw holding the main board onto the aluminum plate. Save it for use later in the project. Gently lift up on the board to separate it from the aluminum plate and angle it down and away to remove it. Fold the assembly over and lay it back onto the housing. Remove the tape covering the ribbon connector on the upper left. Pop off the light-colored plastic connector by gently pulling up on the right edge with your screwdriver. Flip up the locking tab that holds in the remaining ribbon connector. In some cases, this ribbon may have already come free during the previous steps, or may come out when you pull off the tape. Gently pull out the mainboard assembly to remove it from the housing. Remove the 3 screws holding in the lens assembly. Pull out the lens to remove it. We'll prepare the lens for use in the ribcage in a separate tutorial. Now let's remove the LCD button strip. We'll need the isopropyl alcohol and a small applicator for this step. In this case, we're using a plastic stir stick. Locate the 2 plastic parts and the clamp pictured. Place the plastic bridge over the left side of the LCD display with the smaller tab at the top edge. This should be placed as far left as possible while still having both ends touching the aluminum plate. Place a few drops of alcohol on the white LCD backing against the aluminum plate. Place the small plastic part over the white backing. Open the clamp and carefully place it over the plastic parts so that there is even pressure, and slowly release it. You will probably notice a small dark patch appear on the LCD. This is normal and will disappear shortly. Apply a few drops of alcohol under the top right corner of the LCD display. You should notice the dark patch on the screen slowly fade as the adhesive releases. Add more alcohol as needed. Remove the clamp and plastic parts. Gently lift the LCD display to verify that it's free. Gently peel off the lower portion of the button strip, taking care not to bend it sharply. Wipe off the remaining alcohol. The rest should evaporate after a few minutes. The camera teardown is now complete. Now let's install the mod kit. Let's get started by opening up your kit and removing the contents. For a full list of parts, please view the PDF instructions listed on our support page. If you experience any difficulty or have questions during your project, please contact support. Be sure to include your support code for the fastest possible service. It's always better to ask first if you're not certain about any of the steps. Now we'll prepare the button. You can use either the black button supplied or the original camera button. Locate the plastic standoffs supplied in the kit. Use a dab of superglue and a pair of tweezers to attach the standoff to the button. Next, we'll separate the metal plates using the L keys provided. Now we'll insert the main board into the PCB plate. If any of the gray heat transfer material remains on the chips, remove it now. Place a dab of heat paste on each of the chips pictured. Place the dab on the left side of the largest chip as shown. Place the board onto the PCB plate and fasten it in place with the PCB board screw that you removed earlier. Next, we'll add the screws to the lower edge of the aluminum plate. These screws should be tightened only until the plate touches the main board. Don't over-tighten. Keep an eye on the edge of the assembly to make sure you aren't causing any stress on the board. Continue until everything is snug. Next, take the flexible jumper from your kit. Carefully bend the jumper as shown. Insert the left side of the jumper through the board where the lens assembly was located. Connect the flexible jumper to the main board taking care to align the connectors prior to exerting any pressure to seat them together. They should click together easily when properly aligned. Add a small piece of electrical tape to the upper side of the flexible jumper. Take the rear housing of the camera and carefully bend the flexible ribbon so that it's straight and extends out as far as possible. Carefully insert the ribbon into the socket on the mainboard as shown. If it doesn't go in all the way, we can correct that in a moment. Flip down the plastic locking mechanism to keep it in place. Next, insert the light-colored plastic connector into its socket. Carefully align it and click it in place with a gentle push. Now it's time to connect the LCD button strip. Gently flip open the assembly. Remove the backing from one side of the double-sided tape provided. Place the tape on the back of the LCD. Orient the LCD so that it's face up and insert the ribbon connector into the socket on the mainboard as shown. Flip down the locking mechanism to hold it in place. Close the assembly and flip it back over. Cut a piece of electrical tape and apply it to the back of the flexible jumper as shown. Next, angle the board assembly back into the housing, taking care not to stress or unseat the connections. You may need to gently lift the edge of the housing with a flat screwdriver to get the assembly in. Push it together until it clicks into place and the USB and HDMI ports are properly aligned with the housing. Now is a good time to check your connections. If they aren't fully inserted, take a moment to make the proper adjustments. Tuck the flexible jumper under the edge of the aluminum plate. Remove the backing from the double-sided tape on the LCD display. Now take the aluminum cover plate and carefully align the LCD screen with the hole in the plate. Slowly put the cover plate in position over the PCB plate, making sure that the LCD display is properly aligned. Once in place, gently press on the screen with your finger to stick it in place. Remove the cover plate for use in a few minutes. Pop the flexible jumper back out from under the aluminum plate. Next, take the remainder of the screws removed from the original camera. Secure the assembly with the 4 corner screws. Note that the shortest screw must be used on the lower left. These screws should be snug only. As you tighten them, make sure the edge of the housing stays straight and parallel with the aluminum plate. Now we'll insert the image sensor into the cover plate. Insert the sensor into the socket on the back of the plate. Take care not to touch the sensor, but if you do, it can be cleaned later. Secure the sensor in place with the 4 short black screws supplied. Loosely add all 4 screws and then slowly tighten them in a crisscross fashion. These screws should be snug only, don't over-tighten. Next, we'll connect the image sensor to the flexible jumper. For this step, you'll require something thin and rigid such as a small ruler or credit card. Here, we're using a plastic gift card. Turn the camera on its side and slide the card behind the flexible jumper. Take the cover plate and image sensor and carefully align the 2 connectors. Push down with your finger to connect them. Use patience and care with this step. Using too much force may damage the connectors. If required, use a screwdriver to push the connectors fully into place. You should feel them click together once properly mated. Now it's time for a quick test. Insert the battery into the housing and press the power button. If the camera powers on and you are able to switch modes, everything is good. If the camera doesn't power on or you can't change modes, first ensure your battery is charged, then double check your connections and try again. Next, we'll attach the faceplate. Push the ribbon connectors into the camera and make sure they won't interfere with the plates going together. The flexible jumper is somewhat rigid, so you will feel some resistance as you put it in place. Make sure nothing is caught between the plates if they don't go together. Turn the camera over and insert the plastic button as shown. Make sure it's right side up. Gently press down to put the cover plate in place. Use one of the small socket head screws from the kit to screw the plates together in the center. Continue adding the remaining screws to the cover plate until it sits snug and flat. Before going further, you may optionally want to perform another quick test to verify everything is functioning properly. Now is a good time to clean the sensor if required. Use a puffer or your favorite sensor cleaning tools to make sure it's clean and free from dust and fingerprints. Now we'll install the IR cut filter. If you want to use the camera for night vision, or if you plan to use M12 lenses with built-in IR cut filters, you can leave the filter out. Your kit comes with a rubber O-ring and plastic spacer. Either can be used at this time, but we'll use the plastic spacer. Drop it into the socket on the back of the M12 ring. Next, take one of the filters from the kit and place it on top. Align the ring and filter to the holes in the front of the camera. Make sure that the set screw is located on the upper right. Take the 4 medium-sized socket screws from your kit. The short screws should be fitted to the top and bottom, and the longer ones on the left and right. Take care not to use the long screws on the top and bottom, as they can potentially cause damage. Tighten the screws until the ring sits snug and flat on the surface. Add a steel set screw to the M12 ring using the smallest L key. Add the 2 remaining set screws to the CS mounting ring. Thread the CS ring onto the camera. Connect the tripod mounting plate with the large screws and L key. Unscrew the plastic cap from your C-mount ring and add the ring to the camera. Now you're all done. You can use the M12 lenses in the built-in socket, or use an optional M12 to CS adapter for ones that require more distance from the sensor. And of course, CS mount, C mount, and almost anything else.